Ever wondered what creatures in the ocean are completely out of this world? From glowing fish to alien-like crabs, these mysterious critters have scientists scratching their heads wondering if they really belong on Earth. Get ready to have your mind blown by the strangest, most otherworldly animals you never knew existed right here on our planet. A head so transparent it reveals the mechanics of its own eyes is not exactly what you'd expect to find lurking in the depths of our planet, yet the barreleye fish is one of those creatures. Suspended in near total darkness, this odd little creature shows off a crystal clear dome that lets you watch its tubular eyes swivel around like tiny security cameras in its head. The rest of its body might seem ordinary at first glance, but that bizarre jelly-like forehead stands out as if some deep-sea alien engineer decided to skip a skull entirely. Scientists believe that this evolutionary quirk helps the barreleye track prey by looking straight upward through its own head, as if the fish is wearing a see-through helmet, giving a full tour of its internal gears and making every other animal look downright basic in comparison. A gruesome grin and a glowing rod dangling from the forehead wouldn't look out of place on a sci-fi movie poster, yet that's exactly what the female deep-sea anglerfish wields down in the blackest corners of the Pacific, with a built-in headlamp that lures unsuspecting prey right into a gaping mouth bristling with needle-like teeth. This predator turns the concept of subtlety on its head. Stranger still, the males are tiny and latch onto the females permanently, losing their individuality to fuse like bizarre biological accessories. The result is a creature so outlandish and weird, so unearthly, that calling it a monster feels almost too generous. It's more like a living lesson in just how weird nature can get when no one's watching. A snout extending out like a flattened blade and jaws that shoot forward like a horror movie trap give the goblin shark a look that belongs in a galaxy far, far away. Not far enough though, because it's here on Earth. Often hauled up unexpectedly from submarine canyons, this pinkish predator seems more myth than marine. Its skin is pale and ghostly, and it can flip its jaw out so fast it's hard to believe it's even attached. Paleontologists call it a living fossil, but the term almost sells it short. This shark's ancient lineage feels like a cryptic message from another era, if not another world. In a deep ocean filled with outlandish creatures, the goblin shark stands out as the weirdo that even other bizarre species probably whisper about. The vampire squid, a creature with a name that dramatic, better have the looks to back it up, and the vampire squid delivers, draped in velvety red membranes and sporting eyes that glow with an unsettling blue. It floats through low oxygen zones that would kill most other animals. While it's actually a gentle scavenger, its sinister silhouette, faintly illuminated by its own bioluminescent spots, creates the illusion of a winged phantom drifting through alien waters. The vampire squid's ability to survive where few others dare suggests that it's figured out secret deep-sea hacks that border on the supernatural. It might not suck BLOOD, but it sure knows how to keep a haunting vibe going in the darkest corners of our planet's oceans. The yeti crab. If a sculptor tried to craft a crustacean after hearing only vague rumors of Earth life, they might come up with the yeti crab. Discovered scuttling around thermal vents in the Pacific, this ghost white crab sports hairy, furry-looking claws that serve as cozy homes for bacteria. Instead of shying away from inhospitable vent fluids, it thrives there, forging a partnership with microbes that might as well be cooking up gourmet meals just for it. Between its freaky fuzzy arms and its uncanny pale body, the yeti crab feels more like a prototype of an alien line of designer pets than a real-life Earth species. Seeing one can be startling, like a cryptid come to life, or a secret experiment escaped from a hidden underwater lab. The lancetfish has a very prehistoric look. It got these sharp teeth and that big sail dorsal fin on the top, and this is its scientific name, Allosaurus ferox. If I didn't know any better, I would think that was a dinosaur. These fish can get pretty big too. Some can grow up to 2 meters or about 6'6". They can be found in nearly all oceans except for the polar regions. They're aggressive hunters, feeding on smaller fish and squid, but they've also been known to eat members of their own species when no other options are around. I'd never heard about these guys until today, but I'm really glad that I've discovered them. They may be on my list of top 10 favorite fish now. I love the way they move through the water too. The sturgeon is another ancient creature that's been around since the early Jurassic period. Now, these fish are mainly known for being the source of caviar. They're unfortunately endangered today thanks to overfishing. Now, I didn't know how big these guys can get though. Some species of sturgeon can grow over 20 feet long, making them as large as a great white. Sturgeon feed on small animals from the ocean floor, and they're generally pretty harmless to humans, but just because of how massive they are, they can pose a threat. Unintended, but still, there have been cases where sturgeons have leapt out of the water and landed on boats, causing injury or, in rare cases, even death. The sawfish. Now, this is a pretty remarkable survivor from the Cretaceous period, and they are unfortunately also critically endangered today. You can find them in both saltwater and freshwater. It's even been spotted up to 100 kilometers inland in rivers and creeks. They can get pretty huge, growing up to 7 meters or 23 feet long. They do look like strange sharks, but they're actually more closely related to rays. You can kind of tell by their belly part. They look a bit like a stingray. Also, they have a really funny mouth. Anyway, their most distinctive feature is what can only be described as a chainsaw on their snout, which is not only a weapon, but also a highly sensitive organ, covered in what are called electrosensitive pores. The sawfish can detect prey even with poor eyesight. These things are generally pretty peaceful, despite having, a chainsaw on their face, but they can get dangerous if they're provoked. Fascinating fossil discovery also revealed that prehistoric sawfish were likely food sources for the massive carnivorous dinosaur Spinosaurus. They found vertebrae from a sawfish lodged in one of their teeth. The alligator gar. It's not actually an alligator, but a massive fish from the gar family, and it's one of the largest freshwater fish in North America. Found mostly in the southern United States, they're ancient creatures that have been around for about 100 million years. They can grow up to 10 feet long and weigh over 400 pounds. With their thick armored scales and their large fang-filled mouths, they do look more like a crocodile than a fish, or an alligator than a fish. There are plenty of photos of fishermen holding up these things, and sometimes it takes 2 fully grown men to hold one. In one incident, a man dangling his feet off a dock had an alligator gar latch onto his foot and try to pull him under the water. Now, fortunately, he did manage to escape, but there's a very good chance that these fish might have done this before, and that's the reason behind several mysterious drownings. And finally, we have tadpole shrimp. Picture a prehistoric sea-dwelling creature, and something like this is probably exactly what's going to come to mind. Tadpole shrimp are ancient crustaceans that have existed for an incredibly long time, dating back to the Triassic period, around 220 million years ago. They belong to the Nautostraca group and have kept a remarkably unchanged appearance throughout their history. They're kind of crazy looking. They have this really cool shield-looking carapace that covers their bodies. And despite their ancient origins, they've continued to thrive in the modern world. They're adept at surviving in environments with fluctuating water levels, often appearing in habitats prone to temporary drying. They have a unique survival strategy during rough conditions too. In response to drought or other not so favorable environment factors, they enter a state of dormancy, forming cysts that protect them until conditions become suitable again. This is a large part of what's helped them endure for as long as they have. The lamprey. These creatures are definitely one of the most terrifying things still swimming around today. There are lots of different types, but the one most people know about is the parasitic lamprey, which looks like a giant horrifying leech, and that's basically exactly what it is. They've been around for hundreds of millions of years, and they're as creepy as they sound. The lamprey is a parasitic species. It latches onto its victim with its circular sucker-like mouth, which is lined with rows and rows of sharp teeth, and once attached, it starts rasping away at its prey, eating its flesh to access all the red stuff inside, leaving leaving these huge, ugly scars on their victims. Lampreys are some of the most primitive fish alive today. In fact, a lamprey fossil dating back 360 million years was found in 2006, making it a living fossil that scientists have used to study ancient evolution. The sea lamprey has earned a reputation as a pest in places like the Great Lakes in North America, where it kills many of the fish that it attaches itself to. Next on the list we have the pygmy right whale. This is one of the rarest whales you can find on Earth today, and they've been around for about 23 million years. They've only been spotted alive and at sea a handful of times, and because there aren't a large number of specimens and DNA for the animal to pull from, there's still a lot that science doesn't know about them. Exactly what they eat and how they behave is still a bit murky. They're very small, for whales anyway, only measuring about 21 feet in length. Yeah, only, but for a whale that is pretty small. They live in the cool waters of the southern hemisphere. They're said to have formed from baleen whales millions of years ago, and as rare as they are now, things may get even worse. As oceans continue growing warmer, the population of these whales is going to drop even further. The nautilus. The nautilus is a mollusk that's lived in the sea for 500 million years, thriving during a time when the continents were still taking shape. Originally, there were 10,000 different species of this animal, but today only a few survive in the western Pacific Ocean and the coast of the Indian Ocean. Chambered nautilus, a specific type of the creature, use their 90 retractable suckerless tentacles equipped with are called chemonosensors to hunt for fish, crabs, and lobsters. The tentacles help them pick up food scents in their environment. Using a beak-like mouth, they pry open tough shells to access their prey. They also regulate the amount of water and air in their shell through an internal tube called a hyponome. These are such strange but really beautiful looking creatures. The striped markings on them, just very eye-catching. Hagfish. These are one of the most bizarre and ancient creatures still alive today. They've been around for over 300 million years, and just to put this into perspective, this means they were swimming around before dinosaurs came about. These things are often called slime eels. As for why, I'll get to that in a moment. Now, they aren't actually eels, and some scientists even question whether they should be classified as fish. One of the most fascinating things about the hagfish is its unique anatomy. They do have a skull, but they completely lack a spine. They also have 2 brains. I don't think I've ever heard of a creature with 2 brains before. That's crazy. Hagfish spend their nights scavenging for food, feeding mostly on the carcasses of larger animals that sink to the ocean floor. They have a strong sense of smell, allowing them to locate food sources. In 2011, researchers made a pretty interesting discovery. Hagfish can actually absorb nutrients through their skin and gills. This makes them one of the only vertebrates known to have this ability. It's especially useful when food is scarce. It just increases the surface area available to absorb nutrients. But as promised, of course, we gotta get to the reason behind the slime eel nickname. Well, these things have the ability to produce this thick, sticky slime that can clog the gills of other fish, making it nearly impossible for them to be eaten. This defense mechanism is so effective that hagfish have virtually no natural enemies, making them one of the ocean's most resilient animals. This next story is taking up 2 spots on the list. Deep down off the coast of Kerala, India, scientists recently discovered 2 new species of deep-sea eels. These ones live in the dark, crushing depths of the ocean. There's barely any light down there. One of the species belongs to a family of eel which hadn't been reported from Indian waters before. Both eels are long, thin, kind of creepy looking. They're a bit pale, sort of like me. They were found during deep-sea surveys looking for unknown ocean creatures. What's cool is how these eels survive down there. They've adapted to extreme cold and pressure, and their bodies are built for slipping through tight spaces in the seabed. Unlike shallow water eels, these deep-sea versions probably feed on tiny crustaceans or leftover scraps that drift down from above. Because these things come from such deep, dark places, there's still a ton we don't know about their behavior or life cycles. Finding new eel species like this is a big deal though, since deep-sea ecosystems are still mostly a mystery. Back in October of 2024, scientists off Madagascar Ridge identified a brand new skate species they're calling the brown long-nosed skate. So these things can grow over 70 centimeters long. They found 8 of them living way down, about 750 to 1,050 meters deep, swimming around one of the underwater mountains out there. What's pretty interesting is this skate might only live in that one specific area. That's not unusual for deep sea creatures, but it does make them pretty easy to miss and pretty easy to wipe out from fishing. Skates like this are slow growers. They don't reproduce quickly, and they tend to stick to the same places. The problem is, bottom trawlers have already been active in parts of this region, and if fishing pushes into the skate's territory, it could be in serious trouble before we even get a chance to study it properly. The wild part is this isn't some untouched part of the ocean. This is a place where people have been fishing for a while, and we're just now finding out the brown long-nosed skate was living there the whole time. That's pretty crazy. In late 2024, researchers exploring deep reef zones off the Maldives found a brand new species of damselfish called Chromis abida. It's a small, pale fish with this soft bluish shimmer to it. It's not the kind of thing that jumps out at you underwater. It blends in so well, which is probably why nobody noticed it until now. The fish was found hanging around mesophotic reefs, which are deep parts of the ocean where some sunlight still reaches, but not nearly as much as shallow reefs. Of course, they're also deeper than most people dive, usually about 100 to 150 meters down. These reef zones don't get a lot of attention, but they're packed with life. Scientists found this fish at a number of different sites, so it's not like it's super rare, it's just we haven't been looking in the right places. The ghostly damselfish, as it's known, probably spends most of its time darting in and out of cracks in the reef and hiding near sponges, staying away from predators. But the fact that such a common fish went unnoticed this long really makes you wonder how many other creatures are living down there, totally off our radar. Bigger, scarier, more dangerous ones. And scientists just recently identified a new species of shark called Etmopterus brose, or Barry's lantern shark. It was discovered by shark expert Dr. David Ebert and his team. This new species is part of a shark group called Etmopterus, which is actually one of the most diverse shark groups in the world, with around 42 different species known so far. This one lives way down in the Indian Ocean, off the west coast of South Africa, down around southern Mozambique and near the Madagascar Ridge. They live anywhere from 480 meters to 1,200 meters, or about 1,570 to 3,940 feet below the surface. Now, for a long time, this shark was misidentified for other species. It looks very similar to other sharks in its family, but what sets it apart is its skin and markings. Its body is covered in something called dermal denticles. So these are tiny tooth-like scales that protect its body. On this shark, the denticles are especially thick and packed tightly around the base of its dorsal fin. It also has a cool setup on the underside of its snout, a patch of tiny receptors called ampullae. These are sensitive to electric fields and help the shark detect prey. Think of it as a kind of sixth sense, super handy when hunting in total darkness. When it comes to color, Barry's lantern shark has a more subtle look than some other sharks. Instead of a sharp line dividing its darker top and lighter belly, the colors kind of blend together more smoothly. It's mostly all dark. This probably helps it blend in better in the deep water. Scientists exploring the Indian Ocean near the Cocos or Keeling Islands recently hauled up a deep sea batfish, and this thing is honestly pretty weird. It's a flat pancake-shaped fish that actually walks across the ocean floor using its fins a bit like legs. It doesn't swim much like other fish. It kind of waddles and creeps along. One of the coolest things about it is its built-in lure on its head. It has this little fleshy rod that sticks out in front of its mouth, which it wiggles to trick smaller fish into swimming close enough to get snatched up. These batfish live in complete darkness at insane depths where the pressure would crush most creatures, but they've adapted to survive, moving slowly and conserving energy in a place where food is pretty hard to find. The one scientists found came from about 6 kilometers down, a part of the ocean floor that had barely been studied before. These creatures have been living down there totally unnoticed by humans and chances are there's a lot more waiting to be discovered. And there was. On the same expedition, researchers discovered a blind eel that might be one of the strangest animals pulled out of the Indian Ocean. It's a soft-bodied eel with completely gelatinous, see-through skin. You can literally see its organs moving inside its body. It's wild to look at. It has no eyes at all because down there where it lives, about 5 kilometers below the surface, there's no light, so vision really isn't much help. Instead, it uses chemical signals and touch to find its way around, and unlike most fish, this eel gives birth to live young instead of laying eggs, which is pretty unusual for deep-sea creatures. Scientists said it was probably cruising around deep trenches and volcanic ridges, places that are basically untouched.
Anglers casting into chocolate brown surf suddenly watched a 16-foot shadow backflip beside the pier. 3 days after Hurricane Sally's eyewall shredded Alabama's coast, fishermen near Fort Morgan filmed a giant oceanic manta ray executing barrel rolls only 30 meters from shore. Normally roaming tropical open oceans, these giants follow plankton blooms. Sally's 20 inches of rain washed a banquet of nutrients into nearshore waters. Marine ecologists say the storm's churning mixed warm Gulf surface layers downward, creating the temperature gradient mantas prefer. The surprise cameo added storm-chasing manta to the list of Sally's bizarre side effects and offered researchers a rare northern Gulf sighting for the species tracking database. Lightning flashes, and in that split second, you see a dinosaur coasting past your SUV. Tina Lambert Bennett's doorbell cam captured a 3.5 meter or 12-foot American alligator paddling down her flooded driveway as Hurricane Sally's surge peaked at 6 feet. Alligators tolerate brackish water for short periods, so coastal storms can lift them out of bayous and onto urban streets. Wildlife officials later tracked the reptile back to Little Lagoon marshland once waters subsided. A Reuters fact check traced the footage's origin after copycats falsely claimed it showed other storms, proof that Sally's viral gator remains the gold standard for see you later alligator content. Folklore says the sea gods send an oarfish before disaster. This one arrived just hours after a night of typhoon-driven waves. Villagers in Albi awoke to a 4-meter giant oarfish rippling like silver ribbon on the beach. The fish's fragile bones and scaleless body make it prone to injury from turbulent upwelling. Local legend claims oarfish herald earthquakes. Scientists counter that storm damage and pressure trauma are likelier culprits. Still, the rarity of seeing a deep-sea sea serpent alive made headlines worldwide, and fair enough. Seeing one of these things really makes you understand where the tales of sea serpents come from. Half the carcass was unfortunately sold at the fish market before biologists could secure samples, underscoring how quickly folklore can mix with fisheries when curiosity meets commerce. 3 brothers scouting dive spots nearly drove over a 14-foot giant squid sprawled across the asphalt. A fierce Antarctic blast pummeled Wellington's south coast, and the next low tide revealed a giant squid. Mantle 4.2 meters, tentacles shredded by rocks at Red Rocks Reserve. Divers Jack, Daniel, and Matthew Applin phoned NIWA scientists who measured beak size to confirm full adult status. Extreme low pressure systems can stun deep-dwelling squid, causing fatal buoyancy loss that sends them rocketing to the surface like balloons. Samples from this individual fed into global DNA studies mapping giant squid populations, turning a freak beach day into a data windfall for cephalopod science. Subsea cameras caught an octopus literally white-knuckling basalt as 40-foot waves smashed the surface above. During November's bomb cyclone, Ocean Networks Canada's observatory at Folger Pinnacle filmed a giant Pacific octopus flattening itself against rock outcrops while currents whipped kelp sideways. The cephalopod folded its web between arms, reducing drag, a behavior scientists had hypothesized but never observed before. Sensors recorded dissolved oxygen drops and turbidity spikes, offering rare paired data on how extreme weather affects benthic hunters. When conditions calmed 18 hours later, the octopus released its death grip and glided off unscathed, proving storm survival is possible hundreds of feet down, especially if you have 8 anchors. Commuters thought the tentacled blob in the elevator bay was a Halloween prank until it darted for a floor drain. A seasonal king tide amplified by offshore squalls pushed seawater through storm water drains onto a multi-story garage on 14th Street in Miami Beach in 2016. Along for the ride was a common octopus roughly the size of a dinner plate. Photos hit Twitter, prompting city staff to trap the animal in a bucket and return it to the bay. Marine engineers later used the incident to illustrate how rising seas and heavier rain events can convert drainage systems into reverse fire hoses, complete with free swimming hitchhikers. Deputies responding to dune-crushing surf found a fish wider than an SUV pancaked in ankle-deep foam. February's potent nor'easter funneled 15-foot breakers onto Volusia County, beaching a mola mola, or an ocean sunfish, weighing an estimated 300 kilograms. Body cam video shows officers comparing the fish to a slimy Roomba while using a stretcher board and rip current timing to slide it back into deeper water. According to NOAA, sunfish lack swim bladders and rely on dive and glide routines. Sudden pressure changes during storms can leave them stuck near the surface and vulnerable to shoreward currents. The fish powered off once afloat, closing our list with a rare, happy ending caught on official tape. The morning after Hurricane Harvey sounded like a war zone, until someone noticed a mouthful of daggers half buried in the mud. When birder Preeti Deze walked Texas City Beach to survey storm damage, she found what looked like a fanged sea snake curled in a crater of sludge. Twitter sleuthing reached Dr. Kenneth Teague at the Smithsonian, who identified the corpse as a fang-toothed snake eel, a deep-sea ambush predator usually hiding 100 meters or 330 feet down. Harvey's 12-foot surge and 800-mile-per-hour winds effectively vacuumed the eel from its burrow and launched it ashore. Biologists noted that the soft, scaleless skin meant the eel would have shredded easily without the storm's sudden hydraulic punch, making Harvey one of the only reasons we've ever seen this species topside. Forget Hollywood hoaxes. This time the shark thrashing through a front yard was verified frame by frame. As Ian's storm surge turned cul-de-sacs into canals, resident Dominic Cameretta shot cell phone footage of a dorsal fin carving across floodwater outside his window. Snopes, marine biologists, and the Associated Press reviewed the clip and matched its outline to a juvenile black tip or bull shark displaced by a 12-foot surge. The fish, around 4 feet long, likely entered the flooded estuary chasing mullet, then rode the surge inland. When the waters receded, the shark was flushed back toward the river, but not before racking up 20 million TikTok views. Imagine walking on empty seabed only to spot two 1-ton mercows heaving for breath in the blazing sun. Hurricane Irma's low-pressure eye literally sucked Sarasota Bay out to sea, leaving bare mudflats and 2 adult manatees stranded like overturned trucks. Photos posted by locals went viral, summoning dozens of volunteers who rolled the 3-meter mammals onto tarps and slid them 100 meters back to deep water. Experts explained that rapid barometric drops can disorient manatees, which surface to breathe, and then they find the waterline suddenly gone. Thanks to quick community action, both animals survived, turning a potential tragedy into a feel-good rescue amid the Category 4 chaos.
Researchers just got some very rare footage of a creature most people only know from dead specimens and stories: a colossal squid. First time ever, an international team filming with a remotely operated submersible caught one on camera near the South Sandwich Islands and the South Atlantic. The squid was a juvenile, about a foot long, spotted 1,968 feet down. Full-grown adults can reach 23 feet though. Crazy. Tiny squid they filmed was almost completely transparent, thin arms, which makes it look like some kind of alien thing floating in the water. Adults lose that translucent look and turn a deep red or purple. The expedition's goal was to explore new sea life, but catching this thing on camera is definitely a bonus. Researchers are now experimenting with different camera setups in the hopes of filming a fully grown colossal squid. That would be incredible. Next on the list we have this horrific looking monster. This is a bobbit worm. The name definitely doesn't fit the image. I mean, a bobbit worm sounds more like a little fuzzy creature from a fairy tale, doesn't it? But these things are scary. They burrow into the seafloor. It can grow up to 10 feet long. Their mouths are full of razor-sharp, scissor-like jaws that snap shut in a fraction of a second. They hide completely underground, only leaving a few antennae sticking out so they can sense their prey. When something does swim too close, the bobbit worm snaps them up. It's like an underwater version of a sandworm from Dune. Look at this thing, ew. Looks like one of those like stitched together creature hoaxes that'd be paraded around a freak show, right? Back in the day. But this is actually a real species. It's called the black swallower. It doesn't always look like this. It just has a poor fishy trapped in that massive pouch on its underside. The black swallower isn't all that big itself, usually only about 8 to 10 inches long, but its stomach is incredibly stretchy, like a deflated balloon. That means it can eat things much, much bigger than its own body. Sometimes a fish that's twice its length and 10 times its weight. Food is scarce in the deep sea, so when it finds a meal, it can't afford to be picky or slow, so it just opens its jaw and gulps it up. The prey slides down into its stomach, where it's packed away for a long time. These things kind of feed like snakes. Here's a gnarly fact. Sometimes the meal is so big that the fish can't even digest it quickly enough, so the prey starts to decompose inside the swallower's stomach. That releases gases that make the swallower inflate like a balloon and float to the surface where they die. That's how most of these fish have been found by scientists. It's really a literal case of their eyes being too big for their stomach. Shout out to all the arachnophobes in the audience. We got the giant sea spider next. Now these things aren't actually true spiders. They belong to a totally different group of arthropods. These things live in deep, cold parts of the ocean, especially around Antarctica. They have incredibly long, spindly legs, as you can see. Very creepy. Not that you need me to tell you that. Despite how long their legs are though, I mean, look at the body. Super tiny. So small, in fact, it can't actually hold all its organs, so parts of its stomach and other guts actually extend all the way down into the legs. I've never heard of anything like that before in my life. It's like a creature that's just a head with 8 legs attached. Some of these things have a leg span of over 2 feet. Now, how do they hunt? They have a long snout called a proboscis, which they use to suck the insides out of their prey. Brutal. Scientists are still learning about them. For a long time, we didn't know much about their life cycle, but now we know that in some species, the male takes on a strange role. He glues the eggs to the seafloor and stands guard over them for months until they hatch. The gulper eel. These things are very strange. First thing you notice about this creature is, of course, the massive mouth. The scientific name is this, but it's also nicknamed the pelican eel because just look at it. The gulper eel's mouth could open incredibly wide, even wider than the rest of its body. That's because it has a super stretchy throat pouch. Not a strong swimmer, and it can't see very well, so it just kind of hangs out in the ocean and waits for food to come by. It has a glowing tip on its tail that acts like a fishing lure, attracting prey to it. And when a small fish, squid, or shrimp gets too close, the gulper eel quickly opens its mouth and gulps them down, along with a bunch of water. Then it pushes the water out through its gills. Stomach is also very stretchy, so it can swallow prey larger than its body. This video was shared on Instagram back in February. Researchers off the coast of Tenerife weren't looking for anything unusual. They were actually in the middle of a shark project when they suddenly spotted something black floating near the surface. First they thought it might be trash, but when they got closer, they realized it was alive. Turned out to be a humpback anglerfish, also called a black sea devil, one of the creepiest looking deep sea creatures alive today. We've talked about these things plenty of times on the channel before, but they're usually only spotted way down under the surface, and quality footage of them is rare. These fish normally stay anywhere from 200 to 2,000 meters down. They're rarely ever seen alive, certainly never this close to the surface. Photographer David Jara Bagwana, who shared the footage on his Instagram, wrote, "This could be the first recorded sighting in the world of a black demon or adult abyssal alive, in broad daylight, and on the surface." He also called it a, quote, legendary fish that few people will have had the privilege of observing alive. Sadly though, the thing didn't look healthy. Marine biologist Leah Valor said it only survived for a few hours. Why it came up is still a mystery. Valor said there could be thousands of reasons, from illness to escaping a predator. No offense to this creature, but it makes me want to gag. This is a newly discovered species, but in order to talk about how it was first discovered, we gotta go back to 1989. See, that year, a Soviet research ship pulled up some strange fish off the coast of Antarctica. They ended up getting stored away in a collection in Russia. Decades later, researcher Mikhail Nazarkin was digging through those old samples when, as he put it, two unusual fish caught his eye. At first glance, they seemed like a species scientists already knew, but when he looked closer at them, he found they had some physical traits that didn't match anything else. The biggest giveaway was that these fish had unusually large pores on their throats. Turns out this was actually an undiscovered species. He named it this overly complicated sciencey name, but aka the cosmonaut sea eelpout. Nazarkin explained those strange pores on its throat, saying, all the pores on the head of these and many other fishes are connected to canals inside the bones of the head. These canals contain receptors sensitive to mechanical vibrations of water. This system helps fish navigate in space and perceive the movements of other objects. So, essentially, they're like built-in motion detectors. They were found about 1,000 feet down, but beyond that, they don't really know much about these things. That's how rare they are. 2 miles down off the coast of Argentina, there's a deep canyon. Down there, scientists just filmed some of the strangest deep-sea creatures ever seen. Using an underwater robot in the Mar del Plata Canyon, the Schmidt Ocean Institute team spotted over 40 species that could actually be brand new to science. There was a see-through squid with a horn-like spike, pink lobsters, a king crab with 100 hitchhiking barnacles stuck to it, and a ghostly-looking squid. Millions of people tuned into the live streams, and one fan favorite was this goofy-looking starfish that a lot of people compared to Patrick from SpongeBob. The robot also caught a mother octopus wrapped protectively around her eggs, glowing comb jellies, and bright red crabs crawling over the sea floor. Scientists collected specimens to confirm whether they're new species. As researcher Jonathan Flores put it, deep sea canyons are biodiversity hotspots, yet we still know very little about them. The Humboldt squid has a few nicknames: the jumbo squid, jumbo flying squid. In Peru, they're called pota. They're big and not the friendliest. Pretty freaky squids. For starters, these things have barbed tentacle suckers. Even if you don't know what barbed tentacle suckers are, you just get this sense that they're not good. This is a large predatory squid found in the eastern Pacific Ocean. They have long, powerful tentacles equipped with suckers, each lined with sharp, barbed teeth. The beak of the Humboldt squid is also sharp, allowing them to tear into the flesh of their prey. So they're pretty intimidating as is, but even worse, they travel in large packs. And when I say large, I'm not talking about like 10. These packs can consist of thousands, and they're very coordinated, so they can overwhelm larger prey pretty easily. And just like any nightmarish creature, they only come out at night. At least that's when we're most likely to encounter them. They come closer to the surface at night to feed. During the day, they're found much deeper down. So, moral of the story, don't go swimming around in the eastern Pacific Ocean at night, or you might be swarmed by thousands of barbed tentacled jumbo flying squids.
Residing at a depth of about 1,640 feet, we have the frilled shark, which is, like the coelacanth, considered to be a living fossil due to the fact that its origins date all the way back to the Carboniferous period, which took place between 359 to 299 million years ago. The frilled shark is named after its gills, of which it has 6, which each boast a distinctive frilly margin that kind of looks like a decorative trim. But that's not the only thing that sets this deep sea dweller apart from the others. You see, while most sharks have 2 completely separate sets of symmetrical gills on either side of their body, the frilled shark's frontmost gills actually connect underneath its throat. Some other things you might just find interesting about this animal are that, just like the great white shark, this frill shark has 25 rows of razor-sharp, backwards-facing teeth on both its upper and lower jaws. Unlike the great white shark, the frill shark attacks like a snake by lunging at its prey. This gray aquatic dinosaur also has a gestation period of up to 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Seriously, thank God I'm not a frill shark.
Now, we can't do a list like this without mentioning the giant squid. I mean, giant squids are some of the largest invertebrates on Earth. Adults can reach lengths of up to 43 feet, at least from what we've seen. There's still a lot of mystery to these things, and some researchers say they could grow even bigger than that. They live in the deep ocean at depths of 3,000 to 6,500 feet. They're very elusive and live so deep down, they're very rarely seen. Giant squids have the largest eyes of any known animal, measuring up to 10 inches in diameter. Their eyes allow them to detect faint traces of bioluminescent light in the deep sea. They have long tentacles equipped with suckers lined with sharp teeth. The 2 long feeding tentacles, along with the 8 shorter arms, help them capture and consume their prey. These things aren't just scary in terms of size either, they're also carnivorous, hunting fish and even other squid species. They've even been known to eat small sharks. What's so amazing about these creatures is that for centuries they were only talked about in stories told by fishermen or sailors. They were treated like any other mythical creature. It isn't until fairly recently that one of these things were actually captured on camera. Because of where they live and how hard they are to catch, studying giant squids is a tough task. Most of our knowledge about them comes from specimens that have washed ashore or from examining stomach contents from creatures that have eaten them. Sperm whales. That's basically the only animal big enough to mess with these things.
And of course we have to include the goblin shark, a truly unsettling specimen with a protruding mouth that extends outwards to catch its prey. The goblin shark was discovered by scientist David Starr Jordan in 1098, however the species itself is actually believed to be around 125 million years old. The animal boasts 26 long, thin, spiky teeth on their upper jaw and 24 on their lower jaw. The more I learn about this thing, the more I want to stay as far away from it as possible. Lucky for me, this goblin shark is generally seen at depths of 4,265 feet, but unluckily for me, it enjoys late night swims incredibly close to the surface of the water, which I will be keeping in mind the next time I want to take a late night dip in the heart of the Pacific, Atlantic, or Indian Ocean.
In the serene waters of Seljordsvatnet in Telemark, Norway, there's a legend that has existed for over 2.5 centuries. The existence of a mysterious sea creature dubbed Selma. The legend of Selma has been passed down through the generations, a part of the folklore for locals of the area, but back in 2012, Selma took a step closer to reality when a 17-year-old named Lisbeth, while on a family trip, managed to capture what are hailed as some of the best images ever recorded of this creature. Possibly. During a family outing, Lisbeth captured a pretty good video. Gunvor Vefal, Lisbeth's mother, had her own encounter with Selma in 1995, and her mother saw it back in 1970. She never came out publicly at the time with her story though, thinking she'd just get laughed at. In the footage, you can see some sort of long object colliding gracefully beneath the surface of the water with approximately 40 to 50 distinct humps. It's a pretty solid piece of footage. What do you all think though? Misidentified animal or genuine sea serpent? Fields of red-tipped tubes waving in the darkness around scalding hydrothermal vents might not sound appealing, but giant tube worms have built entire communities out of these hellish conditions. These towering worm-like creatures reaching over 6 feet long have no mouths, no stomachs. Instead, they rely on bacteria cranking out energy from chemicals belching out of the Earth's crust. The result is a surreal scene straight out of an extraterrestrial meadow. Slender white cylinders crowned in bright crimson plumes, forming an alien-like garden hidden miles under the Pacific. They're proof that life doesn't just adapt, it thrives in places that would seem impossible by any normal standard. A pudgy body with ear-like fins that flop around in slow motion makes the Dumbo octopus a cross between a cartoon character and a visitor from a distant star system. Floating through the crushing depths with gentle flaps of its ears, this little weirdo doesn't bother hunting big flashy prey. It quietly scoops up morsels, drifting by as if savoring a quiet life at the edge of Earth's final frontier. Its gelatinous skin, soft curves, and calm demeanor feel too serene for such a harsh environment. Spotting one can feel like a blessing, a graceful reminder that even in the darkest corners of our planet's peaceful alien elegance can glide by without a care. A body so transparent you can see straight through to its insides sounds like a prank of nature. But glass squids take this quirk to the extreme. Hanging out in the Pacific's dim twilight zones, many species are almost entirely see-through, making them nearly invisible to predators and prey alike. Some light up with gentle glows, turning them into drifting lanterns, and a watery world that barely knows what sunlight is. Nothing screams otherworldly like an animal engineered by evolution to all but vanish into its surroundings. Whether shimmering faintly or gliding in ghostly silence, these squid operate on a level of natural stealth that would impress the most cunning extraterrestrial spy. And a creature that looks like a swollen pale sausage strolling around on tiny stubby legs is odd enough on land, but in the black depths of the Pacific seafloor it's downright uncanny. The sea pig, a type of sea cucumber, gathers in huge herds roaming the muddy bottom in search of sustenance. Their bloated bodies and wiggly little appendages make them seem less like earthly critters and more like aliens sent to terraform an unknown planet. They don't have eyes as we know them, and their methods of surviving down there remain partly mysterious. Watching them trundle by in groups can make the dark seafloor seem even stranger, as if you're stumbling into a secret alien migration that's been going on eons before anyone noticed. A structure so delicate and beautiful that it could pass for a handcrafted glass sculpture, Venus's flower basket sponge sets the bar high for otherworldly design. Found in the western Pacific, its intricate lattice work of silica spiculus forms a symmetrical mesh that would amaze any architect, human or otherwise. It's not just pretty. Tiny shrimp couples sometimes end up trapped inside, forming a lifelong partnership sealed in this gleaming fortress. That's right, an underwater sponge that doubles as a romantic prison, complete with its own bizarre social arrangement. This blend of art and biology, utility and elegance, makes it feel less like a mere organism and more like a living piece of alien technology left behind to inspire awe and confusion in equal measure.